It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Molly Leach. Hi, Molly. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So where are you calling from?
I'm currently right by the Chesapeake Bay in Maryland.
Oh, all right. Nice area. Very beautiful there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Quite hot, but very beautiful. I love the water ecosystem of the bay.
Yeah, it's really nice. And, of course, you've got the famous crab cakes, which are delicious.
Absolutely, the crab cakes. They are delicious.
Yeah. So you've got a book called Following Sasquatch, and it's funny because I've had a few people on my show who have done films or books about Sasquatch. The Sasquatch never seems to disappear. He seems to be a fascination for people, particularly in the United States. And do you know where the whole thing started? I mean, where like the first sighting or any history about the Sasquatch?
I don't know where the first sighting of Sasquatch happened, but I spend a lot of time on the Blackfeet Reservation in Montana, right on the east side of Glacier National Park. And the idea for this story was born in Oregon, but it kind of developed and grew on the Blackfeet Reservation. And they view Sasquatch as like a traveler, so a shapeshifter. And that story goes back, ages and ages. So that's probably the oldest story of Sasquatch that I've heard of. But as far as sightings, I don't know. And I personally have not seen Sasquatch, but have encountered people who think they may have just seen him or have, felt some kind of energy, around.
Well, there's that famous film that came out in the 60s that I'm sure you've seen. What do you think of that? Do you think that's real, or do you think that's just somebody in a suit?
I actually haven't seen this movie. What movie are you talking about?
Oh, it's not really a movie. It's just somebody captured who they claim to be Sasquatch on 8mm film. It was, I think, in the mid-60s. I mean,
okay.
The film quality isn't that good, but it's very famous. And there's one point where the Sasquatch sort of turns and looks directly at the guy, at the camera, and then just keeps walking. But I mean, you've never seen that film?
No, I haven't.
Oh, well, you got to look it up. It's on YouTube. In fact, I can probably find a link for you after we get finished speaking.
Okay.
Because it's probably the most famous Sasquatch film that's out there. And, of course, people have been debating it for the last 60 years, whether it's real or whether it's, just a guy in a suit. And there's no real consensus about it. People still are undecided. But
I like to believe in all possibilities. I think that's one of my fascinations in the art that I make is with mystical things and things that are unknown. And I think what's so fascinating to me about the things that we don't know is that it's our most potent connection to infinity, right? So anything can be possible. And so I like to believe in that. Anything, could be a guy in a suit, could be, Sasquatch just being like, hey, what's up?
Well, the thing about, I guess, life generally speaking, is I think it's a bit arrogant of mankind to think that we know everything. And
absolutely.
Once you get to that point, then Mother Nature tends to put man in his place when, well, any examples, when people build these monstrosities on the beach and then a giant hurricane comes and just takes it out, without any effort at all. I think that man needs some kind of belief, whether it be religious or spiritual or whatever, to sort of keep him grounded,
Yeah, totally. Grounded and also inspired in a sense.
Grounded, inspired, and humble. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there's a lot of things that nature can teach us and remind us on a daily basis.
Well, I think it's very important that we keep a respect for nature, because nature has the ability to completely destroy us, I think, if it wants to, Why did you decide to write this book? First of all, before I answer that, I'm looking at the cover. Is this a children's book?
I think, well, my personal opinion is that it is a book for humans, big and small,
so everybody.
Anybody.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think the technical classification is kids maybe 5 to 10.
Okay.
But I have sold it to many adults who love it, and the message is universal. So that's why it's not specifically tailored for kids. It's kind of anybody who is a human on this earth, and it just shows us about living gently with the land. But what inspired me to write this was I was actually working out in Oregon in the woods, doing a conservation corps, which is kind of where you take kids out and you teach them, it's their first job generally, and you teach them how to build trails, how to fix trails in the woods. We're usually contracted with the Park Service, whether it's the Forest Service or BLM land. And we were just sitting around the fire one night, me and my crew, and just talking about things that we learned from the day, joking around, and started, one of the messages of that day was these leave no trace principles. And leave no trace principles are kind of a guideline of, like I said, how to live gently with the land, without, taking too much, doing harm to the plants, leaving garbage everywhere.
So clean up after yourself if you're camping, right? Don't leave all your
that's
junk.
One of them.
Right.
Totally. And we were like, oh my gosh, Sasquatch is like the master of leave no trace, because nobody can ever find him. He leaves no trace. And so it just kind of sat in my brain and in my body for a while, and then just wrote it down and turned it into a book.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the connection with the Native Americans, with the Blackfoot, because on the other side of the world, there's the abominable snowman, or the Yeti, who
yes.
is similar, except he's white in color, white fur, who's supposed to live in the Himalayas. And again, the connection to him is religious in the sense of what the indigenous people believe in that region. And so it's kind of interesting that both characters developed, I'm going to assume they developed separately from each other. I don't think that was a conspiracy. But it's possible that the connection came this way because there is sort of anthropological evidence that the indigenous people of North America, or the whole of America, originally descended from that region, from Asia. And during the last ice age, they walked across the land bridge between Russia and Alaska, or what is now Russia and Alaska, and then settled here, gradually making their way all the way to the tip of Tierra del Fuego. Can you imagine walking all that way from Central Asia to, good grief. Although it took them a few thousand years to do it. But it's interesting because the one connection, perhaps, I mean, there's probably more, but the one that's just coming to mind for me right now is that you've got the Yeti on that side and the Sasquatch here. So, and yet there's still no concrete proof that he exists, but there's been people that have cited, and certainly the story has been around for a long time, like you said, yeah.
Mhm.
So
yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Do you have something?
Oh no, you go.
I was just going to say. So, how is the book set up? Is it? Is it like a novel, or is it a textbook style, or what's the read feel like?
The read is kind of a day in the life of Sasquatch. So it starts in the morning. Sasquatch wakes up, and we go on an adventure with Sasquatch. And as we go, we'll say, where should we go today? Looking at a map, and that'll touch upon one of the leave no trace principles, which is to plan and prepare, so that you don't end up getting lost, you don't end up stuck or making a mark in a place that, you didn't intend. And so it's really just a story of like a day in the life of Sasquatch. We go on an adventure, we have lunch, we walk around, see some turtles, play in the water, have a fire, and all throughout the day we learn all the principles of leave no trace.
So is he like Smokey the Bear in this book?
No, not exactly, because Smokey the Bear, I feel like, is kind of always telling us what to do in a little bit more of an explicit way, like put out the wildfires. But Sasquatch is more just of a guide, showing us how he lives and then inspiring us to live in a similar way.
Okay. Has the book been released?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes, it has been released. I actually was hand binding copies for a few years, cut and hand bound 500 copies, which was extremely time consuming.
Wow. Yeah.
And over the course of this past year was illustrating a book for this Wolverine biologist over in Montana, and was helping him kind of look for publishing companies. And that's where I came across this publishing company based out of Maine called 12 Willows Press. And Steve, the owner, immediately grabbed onto my book, and we released it on May 24th.
Okay, great. How's it doing? Are you getting any reviews?
Yeah, it seems to be doing well. Getting some reviews. The reviews are good. People seem to enjoy it. Again, people of all ages, and then also schools like that have outdoor education programs. They want to incorporate it into their curriculum. So there is like an education component to it.
Okay, well, sounds good. You planning on writing another one? Sasquatch 2?
Sasquatch 2? Sasquatch 2 is not in the works at the moment, but I am always writing, so it's not out of the question that Sasquatch will have a return.
A sequel?
A sequel.
Okay.
I think it would be... I like books that kind of have this whole... or not books, but authors who create kind of a whole multiverse, and they have multiple books, and how characters will kind of show up in one book even though they're from another book. So that's definitely on my mind, creating a whole little universe. So Sasquatch may make an appearance in a different story.
Well, I think on that we're going to have to wind this down. We are just kind of running out of time here. The last question.
Oh, no worries.
Last question I have for you is: do you have a website that you want to give out?
12 Willows Press has a website, and that is the best place to kind of go find more information about the book and about me.
12.
And that's just 12willowspress.com. 12 is the number 12.
Number 12. 12willowspress.com. Okay. All right, great. Well, Molly, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you and speaking with you. Best of luck with the book, Sasquatch. I hope... Following Sasquatch is the proper title. And hope it does well.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me and have me on your show.